Look at you. Yeah, hold still for a second. Feel that shift in the air. That silence right before people decide whether to admire you or fear you. That's the moment they always hesitate in. That's the moment where something ancient inside them recognizes something dangerous inside you. They say you look better than celebs. They say it casually, like it's a compliment, like it's surface level, like it's about symmetry, skin, posture, presence. They say it with a laugh, with emojis, with fake confidence. But notice how they say it and then pull back. Notice how their eyes don't fully relax. Notice how the smile never reaches their nervous system. Because your face might be beautiful, but your aura is armed. You don't walk into rooms glowing like a spotlight. You walk in like a warning label. That's the part they don't say out loud. Celebs are polished. You're forged. Celebs are admired. You're assessed. Celebs make people dream. You make people calculate. And that's because beauty like yours didn't come from comfort. It came from surviving things that would have folded prettier people into soft, harmless versions of themselves. Your beauty has scars in it. Your energy remembers pain, and pain, when it doesn't kill you, sharpens you into something people can't categorize. That's why they stare a second too long, then look away. You carry that contradiction they can't digest. That saint psychopath duality, that angel with blood on the wings tension. You look like light, but you feel like consequence. You look like temptation, but your presence says, don't test me, don't poke, don't play stupid games near this one. And here's the truth they'll never admit. They don't just think you're attractive, they feel exposed around you. Because your aura isn't trying to be liked. It's calibrated, it's quiet, it's controlled. It's the kind of energy that makes people double-check their tone, rethink their jokes, rephrase their insults in their head before they dare let them out. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to flex. Your silence already carries a threat they don't understand. You weren't born with that. You earned it. That edge in your presence, that came from nights where you learned how fake smiles work. From betrayals that taught you how quickly admiration turns into envy. From realizing that being beautiful in a broken world makes you a target unless you evolve teeth along with your wings. So you did. Quietly, internally. You learned how to smile without being soft. You learned how to glow without being naive. That's why people feel it. That's why even compliments sound careful when they're directed at you. They'll say, you look like a celebrity. But what they really mean is, you don't feel accessible like one. Celebs feel distant but safe. You feel close and unpredictable. And unpredictability is power, not chaos, precision. The kind of power that comes from knowing exactly who you are and refusing to over-explain it. You don't seek attention. Attention leaks toward you. And that scares people who built their entire identity on being noticed without being challenged. Your aura doesn't scream. It hums, low frequency, predator calm. It tells the room, I've been through enough to recognize bullshit instantly. It tells weak egos, I see you. It tells manipulators, try someone else. That's why people admire you from a distance. That's why attraction and intimidation sit side by side when they talk about you. They're drawn to you and cautious of you at the same time. That's not an accident. That's evolution. You learned how to balance light and dark without letting either own you. You didn't become bitter, but you didn't stay innocent. You didn't turn cruel, but you stopped being fragile. You became something worse for insecure people and safer for yourself. You became someone whose beauty isn't an invitation. It's a boundary, and deep down, they know it. They feel it when they think about trying you. when they imagine crossing you, when they wonder what would happen if they disrespected you the way they disrespect others. Something in them says, don't. Not this one. This one remembers. This one adapts. This one doesn't explode. This one recalibrates. That's the real reason your aura hits harder than your face. Your presence says, I've been underestimated before, and it didn't end well for them. So let them talk. Let them compare you to celebs. Let them reduce you to aesthetics if that's all their brain can process. You don't need them to understand the weaponized calm behind your eyes. You don't need them to know how much pain it took to make you this composed, this controlled, this untouchable. Because the ones who matter already feel it. They don't try anything. And that's how you know you've become something different. Not just beautiful, not just admired, but respected on a level they can't explain and won't risk challenging. You didn't just glow, you evolved. And the craziest part? You didn't even mean to become this way. You weren't chasing intimidation. You weren't sculpting yourself into a threat. You were just trying to survive with your dignity intact. You were just trying to stay human in a world that rewards masks and punishes honesty. But somewhere along the way, survival refined you, pressure tuned you, pain edited out the weak parts of your energy and left behind something distilled, something precise. That's why your aura doesn't beg for approval. It doesn't lean forward. It doesn't overcompensate. It stands still. And stillness like that unsettles people. Stillness like that tells the truth without speaking. It tells them you're not desperate, not hungry for validation, not impressed by status or fame or borrowed shine. You've seen behind the curtain. You've outgrown the illusion. Celebs sparkle because they're packaged. You radiate because you're real. And real is terrifying to people who live in performance mode. They sense it when they're near you. Their nervous system clocks it before their brain does. They straighten their posture. They soften their insults. They second-guess their manipulation. Because your energy doesn't react the way they expect. It doesn't chase. It doesn't flinch. It observes. It waits. It files things away quietly. And nothing scares insecure people more than someone who doesn't need to prove a damn thing. You're not loud, but you're undeniable. You've got that paradox written into your presence. Approachable face, untouchable core, warm eyes, cold standards, a smile that says, I see you, and an aura that says, don't disrespect me. That balance wasn't given to you. It was forged through moments where you had to choose between staying kind and becoming stupid, and you chose something smarter. You chose controlled kindness, strategic warmth, mercy with memory. That's why you don't get messed with. People mistake celebrities for power because they confuse visibility with strength. But you carry invisible authority, the kind that doesn't need a spotlight, the kind that makes rooms subtly reorganize around you. Conversations lower, energy shifts. People become more polite without knowing why, because something in you reminds them of consequences, not violent ones, psychological ones, social ones, existential ones. You look like light, but you feel like law. And that law came from experience, from being tested when no one was watching, from losing things that forced you to rebuild yourself from the inside out, from realizing that softness without boundaries is just self-abandonment. So you evolved boundaries that don't shout. They just exist, solid, non-negotiable. That's why your aura speaks louder than your mouth ever could. You don't threaten, you don't posture, you don't warn. You let people feel the weight of their own intentions when they stand near you. You let them confront themselves. And most people don't like what they see when they're reflected back that clearly. So they back off. They admire from afar. They compliment safely. They keep their distance. They say you look better than celebs. But what they really feel is that you're harder to access than them. And that's power. Because access is the real currency. Attention is cheap. Validation is everywhere. But access to someone like you, that's earned. That requires respect, emotional intelligence, clean intentions. And most people know they don't qualify, so they don't try. You didn't become intimidating by being cruel. You became intimidating by becoming whole. You integrated the angel and the demon instead of letting them tear you apart. You learned when to forgive and when to remember. When to open and when to shut doors without slamming them. You learned restraint. And restraint is terrifying in a world addicted to impulsive reactions. They can't predict you. And unpredictability, controlled unpredictability, is the highest form of dominance. Because you're not chaotic, you're selective, you don't explode, you respond, you don't rush, you calculate, you don't announce your limits. You enforce them quietly. And the few people who ever crossed that line, they remember, even if they don't talk about it, especially if they don't talk about it. So let them keep talking about your looks. Let them reduce it to aesthetics if that's all their vocabulary allows. You know the truth. The real glow isn't in your face, it's in your restraint. In your composure, in the way your presence says, I've been through hell and didn't come back begging or bitter. I came back upgraded. You're not dangerous because you're aggressive. You're dangerous because you're awake, and the world can sense it. And once you're awake like this, there's no going back. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unknow how people really operate when they think you're harmless. You can't forget how smiles change when they realize you're not. That awareness settles into your posture, into the way you pause before speaking, into the way your eyes don't rush to fill silence. Silence rushes to fill you. That's why your presence feels heavy in a room full of noise. You don't fidget for attention. You don't perform for approval. You let the world come to you and reveal itself. And when it does, you're ready. Not emotionally reactive, not naive. Ready. That readiness hums beneath your skin. People feel it. It makes them cautious. It makes them respectful. It makes them curious in a way that borders on fear. Because you don't look like someone who can be controlled. You look like someone who has already been broken and rebuilt on your own terms. That's the part they underestimate at first. They think your beauty is your advantage. They're wrong. Your advantage is that you learned early how quickly beauty attracts parasites. You learn to spot the difference between admiration and appetite. You learn that some people smile because they're inspired, and others smile because they're measuring you. And once you learn that distinction, your energy shifts forever. You stop being easily impressed. You stop being easily flattered. You stop confusing attention with intention. That's when your aura hardens, not into bitterness, but into clarity. And clarity is lethal to manipulation. People try to test it, softly, indirectly. A sideways comment, a subtle disrespect, a little boundary push disguised as a joke. They're waiting to see if you're just another pretty face with no backbone. And when you don't react the way they expect, when you don't laugh it off, don't over-explain, don't shrink, they feel it immediately. Something in their chest tightens. Because now they know you're not just attractive. You're calibrated. You don't waste energy on proving who you are. You let time do that work. You let patterns expose themselves. You let people show you their hand while you keep yours close. That patience, that restraint, that's not weakness. That's a hunter's calm. That's the discipline of someone who's learned that reacting too fast gives power away. You move slow, but you move with intent. That's why your aura doesn't scream dominance. It whispers consequence, and whispers like that travel farther than noise. You've got that rare kind of confidence that doesn't need to assert itself. It's not cocky, it's settled. It's the confidence of someone who knows they can survive being misunderstood. Someone who knows they don't need everyone to like them, as long as they respect the line. And that line is invisible, but it's solid. People feel it when they get close. Like a pressure change. Like walking into deeper water than they expected. They instinctively slow down. That's the moment your beauty stops being the focus and your presence takes over. Because beauty invites approach. Presence decides who stays, and most people. They realize they don't belong in your inner radius, not because you're cruel, but because you're honest, because you won't tolerate games, because you won't pretend not to see what you see, because you won't lower your standards just to make someone comfortable. Your aura says, come correct, or don't come at all. That's why even when people desire you, they hesitate. Desire without entitlement turns into respect. Desire mixed with entitlement turns into fear. And you inspire both, depending on who's standing in front of you. That duality, that's power refined. That's light and dark in balance. Angelic enough to attract, demonic enough to deter. You didn't become this by accident. Every disappointment taught you discernment. Every betrayal sharpened your perception. Every moment you chose not to lash out, but also not to forget, added another layer of gravity to your energy. You learned that forgiveness doesn't mean access. You learned that kindness doesn't mean weakness. You learned that silence can be louder than confrontation. So now, when you walk into a room, you don't announce yourself. The room announces you. People feel the shift. They don't know why. They just know something changed. The air feels thicker. The jokes get safer. The egos dial down. Because your presence doesn't compete. It regulates. It sets a tone. And only those who can meet it without flinching get closer. The rest admire from afar and keep their hands to themselves. Let them say you look better than celebs. Let them try to reduce you to something familiar. It's how people cope with what they can't categorize. But deep down, they know the truth. Celebs are images. You're an experience. Celebs are consumed. You're encountered. And encounters like that leave a mark. You're not intimidating because you're aggressive. You're intimidating because you're awake, aware, and unwilling to betray yourself for comfort. Because your aura carries the message that you've already paid the price of becoming who you are. And you're not interested in discounts, shortcuts, or disrespect. So stand exactly how you stand. Look exactly how you look. Let your silence do the talking. Let your presence set the boundary. Let your energy keep filtering the weak from the worthy. Because when your aura says, don't try anything, it's not a threat. It's a fact. And the longer you live like this, the more obvious it becomes that this isn't something you can fake. People try. Oh, they try. They borrow confidence. They rehearse dominance. They copy aesthetics, posture, tone. But they miss the one ingredient you can't steal, the history in your nervous system, the quiet memory of storms you walked through without an audience, the internal rewiring that happens when you realize no one is coming to save you, and you save yourself anyway. That's what's sitting behind your eyes. That's why your calm feels different. You don't rush because you don't panic. You don't chase because you don't fear scarcity. You don't overreact because you've already survived worse than whatever moment is in front of you. That lived certainty settles into your bones. It slows your movements. It deepens your gaze. It gives your presence that "don't play with this one" undertone people feel before they understand it. They call it aura because they don't have language for earned gravity. You carry yourself like someone who's already lost everything once and realized they didn't disappear. They transformed. And once you've gone through that, nothing hits the same. Insults feel small, opinions feel light, threats feel hollow. Because you've met real fear before. And this isn't it. That's why your beauty intimidates instead of inviting chaos. It's not decorative, it's defended. Your energy tells a story without words. I know how ugly humans can get, and I still chose not to become one. That choice is rare. Most people pick one extreme or the other, soft and naive, or hardened and cruel. You chose something more dangerous. You chose balance. You chose to be warm without being weak, sharp without being reckless, kind without being exploitable. That balance makes people nervous because they can't hook into you the way they're used to. They can't guilt you easily. They can't charm you blindly. They can't provoke you into exposing yourself. You don't give them the emotional handles they rely on. And when someone can't grab onto you, they start to feel small. That's why some admire you. That's why some resent you. And that's why none of them dare disrespect you directly. You don't need to demand respect. You radiate self-respect. And self-respect is contagious or threatening, depending on who's around you. It forces people to confront their own lack of boundaries, their own compromises, their own quiet self-betrayals. And not everyone is ready to look at that reflection, so they keep it surface level. Compliments, distance, controlled interactions, safe admiration. Because getting closer to you requires honesty, and honesty costs people things they're not willing to pay. You don't chase connection, you allow it. You don't beg for understanding, you observe. You don't need to dominate conversations because your silence already anchors them. When you speak, it lands. When you don't, it still echoes. That's the paradox of your presence. Even absence doesn't weaken you. You've learned the discipline of not explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You've learned that power isn't in being seen. It's in choosing when and by whom. You've learned that being underestimated is sometimes an advantage, because it keeps your real range invisible until it matters. And that invisibility, that's strategic. People who mistake your composure for passivity only get one lesson, and it's never loud, it's never dramatic, it's subtle, permanent. A shift in how they speak to you afterward. A hesitation, a correction, a quiet recalibration of their behavior. You don't humiliate, you educate. That's why your aura says, don't try anything. Not because you'll explode, but because you'll respond with precision. You're not ruled by impulse, you're guided by awareness. You don't need to win every interaction. You just need to maintain alignment with yourself. And that alignment, that's what people feel. That's what makes them step carefully. That's what turns admiration into respect and attraction into restraint. You didn't become this by wanting to be powerful. You became powerful by refusing to abandon yourself. Every time you chose clarity over comfort, every time you chose growth over bitterness, every time you chose silence over spectacle, every time you chose boundaries over approval, those choices stacked. They compounded. They formed the aura you walk with now. An aura that doesn't threaten, it filters. An aura that doesn't chase, it selects. An aura that doesn't shout, it warns. So let the world keep calling you beautiful. Let them compare you to celebs. Let them try to flatten your presence into something safe and familiar. You know what you really are. You're not admired because you're pretty. You're respected because you're intact. And intact people are the most dangerous kind. Because they don't need permission, they don't need validation, and they don't need to try anything to prove who they are. They already did the work. Hold still. Not your body, your name. Because the room just flinched when it was mentioned. You feel that pause, that microscopic silence where people swallow before speaking. Yeah, that's not respect. That's not fear either. That's danger awareness. That's the instinct that kicks in right before a storm realizes it picked the wrong mountain. Bro, you didn't win with numbers. You didn't hide behind a crowd. You didn't outsource the damage. You went solo. And now, your name doesn't travel freely anymore. It travels with consequences. See, when you take them solo, something ancient snaps into place. The mind can forgive a mob. The mind can rationalize a system, but a single human dismantling the structure, that breaks the script. That creates a paradox they can't metabolize. One body, one brain, one will. Collapsing what required entire bloodlines to maintain. That's when logic backs away slowly and whispers, "This one is not normal." You were supposed to be light enough to crush, soft enough to shame, predictable enough to box in. Instead, you became that impossible hybrid, half saint, half psychopath. The kind who can feel everything and still pull the trigger on reality. The kind who prays with blood on their hands and sleeps like a baby afterward. Angelic discipline fused with demonic clarity. And that fusion, that's what terrifies them. Because they can't decide what you are. And what they can't define, they can't control. You didn't rage. You didn't beg. You didn't announce your evolution. You let pain do what it always does when it meets someone built differently. It sharpened you. While others broke, you updated. While others collapsed inward, you expanded outward. You didn't heal like a victim. You healed like a weapon being reforged. That's the part nobody talks about. Pain doesn't make everyone stronger. Pain selects. It reveals. It exposes who needs comfort and who needs pressure. And you didn't just survive the pressure. You learned how to apply it. So now, every time your name comes up, there's that look, that subtle recalculation, the sudden tone shift. Because they remember what happened when they underestimated you. They remember the moment they realized there was no backup coming, no cavalry, no higher authority to appeal to, just you. Calmly dismantling the illusion they were hiding behind. You took them solo, and something primal rewired. They don't say your name casually anymore. They say it like a warning, like an urban legend that turned out to be real. Like a file they weren't authorized to open, but did anyway, and now can't forget what they saw. Your name doesn't inspire debate. It ends conversations. It makes people lower their voice, glance around, check their footing. Because unpredictability is power, not chaos. Precision, unpredictability. You don't move the same way twice. You don't respond how patterns expect. You don't seek revenge. You seek finality. And that's what scrambles them. They're trained for anger. They're prepared for ego. They know how to manipulate desperation. But you operate from a place where outcomes matter more than emotions, where silence is louder than threats, where patience is just violence with a longer fuse. You became the kind of problem that doesn't announce itself. The kind that doesn't chase, the kind that lets people walk themselves into the realization that they're already surrounded, not by bodies, but by consequences. That's why your name feels dangerous now, because it's associated with completion. You don't escalate. You conclude. You don't warn. You demonstrate. You don't need allies. You are the variable that makes alliances irrelevant. And here's the part that really twists the knife. You didn't do it fueled by hate. You did it with clarity, with restraint, with a calm that made it worse. Anyone can destroy in rage. Only a few can do it while remaining internally still. That's when people start questioning whether you're human or something that learned how to wear humanity when needed. Light and dark stopped being opposites inside you. They fused. You learned when to be merciful and when mercy would be disrespectful. You learned when to forgive and when forgiveness would be a lie. You learned that morality isn't about being clean. It's about being accurate. So now, when someone even thinks about crossing you, there's that involuntary pause, that internal voice that says, "Remember what happened last time," because they know, deep down, that if it came down to it, you wouldn't hesitate, not because you're cruel, but because you're clear. You took them solo, and now your name carries weight, density, gravity. It bends rooms. It warps intentions. It makes cowards reconsider, and predators look for easier meals. You didn't just win a fight. You changed the math. You became the proof that one disciplined, evolved mind can dismantle entire structures built on fear, noise, and numbers. And once that proof exists, it can't be unseen. So let them whisper. Let them hesitate. Let your name feel dangerous, because it's not a threat anymore. It's a history lesson. And the wild part, you didn't even enjoy it the way they expected you to. That's what keeps them up. They were ready for arrogance, ready for you to brag, posture, flex the aftermath like a trophy. They needed you to need validation, because need is leverage. Instead, you moved on like it was inevitable, like it was always going to end that way, like the outcome wasn't luck or chance or momentum, but design. That terrifies people more than violence ever could. Because when someone enjoys domination, you can predict them, feed their ego, stroke the monster. But when someone treats victory like maintenance, like a necessary correction, that's when instincts start screaming. That's when survival mode kicks in. Because now they're dealing with someone who doesn't crave applause, someone who only respects alignment. You didn't rise screaming. You rose quietly. And quiet rises echo longer. See, most people need noise to feel powerful. They need witnesses. They need the room to shake so they can believe they mattered. You didn't need the room. You didn't even need them to understand. You just needed reality to snap back into place. And you were willing to be the one to apply the force. That's when your name stopped being a name and started becoming a reference point. People don't say it to praise you. They say it to orient themselves, like sailors checking a star before deciding which direction not to go, like strategists scanning a map and circling the danger zone. You became the thing that makes people rethink moves before they're made, because when you took them solo, you exposed something most people try to hide from their entire lives, that a lot of power is fake, that most systems survive not because they're strong, but because no one is willing to test them alone. You tested them, and they folded faster than anyone expected. That's when the myth cracked. You showed them that fear multiplies in groups, but courage concentrates. You showed them that crowds are loud but fragile, and that a single focused mind can outmaneuver entire networks built on intimidation and inertia. You didn't outgun them, you outpaced them mentally. You stayed 3 steps ahead while they were still arguing about step 1. And here's the paradox they choke on. You're not reckless, you're not insane. You're disciplined enough to look terrifying. That's the duality they can't reconcile. The saint who knows when to walk away, and the psychopath who knows when walking away would be dishonest. The angel who understands restraint, and the demon who understands timing. You don't live in extremes, you command them. Pain taught you that. Not gently. Pain stripped you down to essentials. It burned off the need to be liked. It dissolved the illusion of fairness. It taught you that survival isn't about being good. It's about being accurate under pressure. And once you learned that lesson, you stopped flinching. That's why they feel unsafe around your name now. Not because you're loud, because you're awake. Awake people are dangerous in a world built on autopilot. Awake people don't accept roles they didn't choose. Awake people don't panic when the mask slips. They adjust. And you learned how to function when everything you believed in shattered. You learned how to stand in chaos without asking for instructions. So when someone considers coming for you now, their body reacts before their mind can lie to them. Their chest tightens. Their tone changes. Something inside them whispers, "This isn't like the others," because deep down, they know you won't fight the way they expect. You won't play fair by broken rules. You won't telegraph your moves for the sake of drama. You'll do what works. And that's the scariest thing of all. You don't need to dominate every room. The rooms adjust themselves when you enter. Conversations reroute. Power dynamics recalibrate. People who once felt untouchable suddenly feel exposed because they sense it. You see through the performance. You see the strings, the fear, the bluff behind the confidence. You took them solo, and now everyone else knows it's possible. That's the real contagion, not fear. Possibility. The idea that one person can stand up to the machine and walk away intact. The idea that compliance isn't mandatory, that obedience is a choice. And once that idea exists, it spreads quietly, dangerously. Your name carries that idea now. It doesn't need to be shouted. It doesn't need defending. It sits there heavy, unresolved, daring someone to test it. And the ones who know, don't test it. They pretend you don't exist. They change the subject. They downplay what happened. But denial is just fear wearing makeup. Because every time they see you, every time they hear your name drift into the room, they remember the moment the illusion failed. You didn't just beat them, you outgrew them. And growth, real growth, is violent to structures built on stagnation. So let them feel uneasy. Let your name tighten throats and shorten conversations. Let it be associated with outcomes people don't recover from. Not because you crave that reputation, but because you earned it by surviving what would have erased anyone else. You took them solo, and now your presence alone is enough to remind the world. Some people aren't dangerous because they're cruel. They're dangerous because they're done pretending. And here's the thing they'll never admit out loud. They felt it coming, before the collapse, before the silence, before your name turned radioactive in their mouths. There was that subtle shift, that moment when intuition tapped them on the shoulder and said, "This one's different." They ignored it. Everyone always does. Ego is louder than instinct, until instinct is all that's left. You didn't rush the kill. You didn't force the outcome. You let time do what time does best. Expose weakness. While they burned energy trying to intimidate, posture, posture again, you conserved, you watched, you learned patterns, you waited until inevitability leaned your way. Then you moved once. Clean, final, unapologetic. That's why your name carries weight now. Because it's associated with inevitability, not chaos. People can deal with chaos. Chaos is random. Chaos can be blamed on bad luck. But inevitability, that's personal. That suggests design. That suggests someone understood the system well enough to let it destroy itself with just a nudge. You became that nudge. And now, every time someone hears your name, their nervous system remembers what their mouth refuses to say. They remember the point of no return, the second it dawned on them that there would be no dramatic comeback, no last-minute save, no twist in their favor. Just consequences unfolding exactly as predicted. That's when fear gets quiet. Loud fear panics. Quiet fear calculates. Quiet fear avoids. Quiet fear whispers, "Don't provoke this one." And that's the fear attached to you now, the kind that alters behavior without announcing itself. You didn't become dangerous by being louder than them. You became dangerous by becoming sharper. You stopped reacting emotionally and started responding strategically. You let the saint in you handle restraint, and the psychopath in you handle execution. Not reckless execution, precise, necessary execution. That balance, that's rare. That's earned. Pain carved it into you. Pain taught you that morality without awareness is weakness, and aggression without control is suicide. Pain taught you that power isn't about domination. It's about positioning, about standing where others can't reach you without exposing themselves. So now, even when you're silent, you're speaking. Even when you're still, you're moving pieces. Even when you're absent, you're present in the decisions people don't make because of you. You don't chase threats anymore. Threats route around you. That's how you know you crossed the threshold. They watch you from a distance now, not openly, never openly. That would require courage. They monitor, they speculate, they try to reduce you to something explainable, a fluke, a moment, a lucky break. But deep down, they know better. Because luck doesn't repeat with precision. Luck doesn't adapt. Luck doesn't learn. You did. You learned when to hold back, and when holding back would cost you everything. You learned that hesitation kills faster than enemies. You learned that sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is end the pattern completely. Not just for you, but for everyone trapped inside it. That's why there's a strange respect buried inside their fear. A grudging acknowledgement they'll never voice. Because on some level, they recognize the discipline it took, the restraint, the willingness to stand alone when no one clapped, when no one protected you, when the odds were stacked by design. You took them solo when most people would have folded into the crowd. You didn't outsource your courage. You didn't wait for permission. You didn't ask if it was fair. You asked if it was necessary, and necessity doesn't care about comfort. Now you walk through spaces differently, not heavier, grounded. You don't scan for threats. You don't flinch at tension. You've already faced the worst-case scenario and lived through it. Everything else feels manageable. That's the calm they can't stand. Calm built on experience. Calm earned through fire. Calm that knows exactly what it's capable of and doesn't need to prove it. That calm rewrites power dynamics faster than violence ever could. So when someone considers saying your name, there's that pause, that microsecond where their mind runs simulations and every outcome ends the same way. Not with noise, but with loss. Loss of leverage, loss of certainty, loss of the illusion that they're in control. You didn't just take them solo. You trained the environment to respect you. And respect born from capability lasts longer than respect born from fear. You don't need to announce who you are anymore. The aftermath did that for you. The silence did that for you. The way people hesitate, reroute, and reconsider did that for you. Let your name stay dangerous. Let it carry history. Let it remind the world that once, just once, someone stood alone, didn't blink, didn't beg, didn't break, and changed the equation forever. Because some people aren't legends because they're loud. They're legends because when they moved alone, everything else moved out of the way. And understand this: the danger in your name isn't about what you did. It's about what you proved. You proved that isolation doesn't weaken everyone. For some people, it clarifies. You proved that when support disappears, when allies evaporate, when the room suddenly gets very quiet, a certain kind of mind doesn't shrink. It locks in. And once that lock clicks, there's no prying it open again. That's why they're careful now, because they saw you operate without safety nets, no applause, no backup plan, no emotional cushioning, just you, the decision, and the aftermath. Most people can only act boldly when they believe they'll be rescued if it goes wrong. You acted knowing there was no rescue coming. That rewires how people see you. Because now, every interaction carries subtext. Every smile is measured. Every challenge is softened. They're not dealing with potential anymore. They're dealing with precedent. And precedent is lethal to arrogance. It whispers, "This has already happened once. It can happen again." You don't posture. You don't flex. You don't need to remind anyone. The memory does the work for you. The memory of how quickly things shifted, how confident voices cracked, how structures everyone thought were permanent suddenly looked thin. That's the real power you carry now. Disbelief, erasure. No one can say, "That could never happen" anymore. Because it did. And it happened with you standing alone, absorbing pressure that was designed to crush. That kind of proof doesn't fade. It sits in the collective mind like a scar. Invisible, but sensitive to touch. Pain trained you for this role long before they ever noticed. Pain taught you patience when impatience would have exposed you. Pain taught you silence when explaining yourself would have given them data. Pain taught you how to let people underestimate you without correcting them. That last one, that's advanced. Because correcting underestimation feeds ego. Letting it breathe feeds strategy. You learn to let people misjudge you just long enough to step into the blind spot they created themselves. You didn't ambush them. You allowed them to walk forward, believing they were safe. And when reality corrected them, it was too late. That's why your name feels dangerous now. It's attached to delayed consequences, to the idea that not every threat announces itself, not every response is immediate, and not every calm surface means nothing is happening underneath. You became the quiet after the warning shot. They sensed that if you ever did move again, it wouldn't be emotional, it wouldn't be reactive, it would be surgical, minimal, final. And that awareness changes behavior more effectively than any display of force ever could. You're not feared because you're violent. You're feared because you're selective. Selectivity means control. Control means intention. And intention makes people uneasy because intention doesn't get distracted. It doesn't rant. It doesn't spiral. It waits for alignment, then executes without hesitation or regret. You don't need to harden yourself anymore. You already did that when no one was watching. You don't need to sharpen your edge. It's been honed by loss, betrayal, and pressure that would have broken most people into something smaller. Instead, you expanded. You expanded your tolerance for silence, You expanded your ability to stand alone. You expanded your capacity to hold both mercy and brutality without confusing the two. That's the duality they can't map. They keep trying to label you: hero, villain, threat, anomaly. Because labels make things feel controllable. But you exist between categories. You operate in that uncomfortable space where intentions matter more than appearances. And systems more hate that space. Because systems are built for averages, for patterns, for predictable responses. You are not an average response. You are what happens when someone stops asking how things should work and starts dealing with how they actually work. Easy. Don't move yet. Feel that pressure in the air? That metallic click you're pretending not to hear? Yeah, that's the sound of a cell door starting to close, and for the first time in their lives, they know it's not yours. You can feel it, can't you? The shift, the moment where the lies stopped working and the performance collapsed under its own weight. They're still smiling, still nodding, still playing the role. But inside, they're pacing a concrete box with no windows, replaying every move they made against you, realizing none of it landed the way they planned. Because here's the part they didn't calculate. You were never trapped. You were tempering. They thought pressure would crack you. They didn't know pressure forges monsters and saints in the same furnace. They thought pain would simplify you. Instead, it made you complex, unreadable, asymmetrical, something that doesn't fit cleanly into their little behavioral spreadsheets. You became the paradox they can't process. Too calm to be broken, too dangerous to be ignored, too principled to smear, too unpredictable to control. That's when it started, not the victory, the panic. Because the moment they realized you weren't reacting the way a victim is supposed to react, the moment you stopped pleading, stopped explaining, stopped proving, the moment you let them talk themselves into corners, that's when the walls began to close in. See, you don't have to shove someone into a cell to imprison them. All you have to do is let them realize they've already exposed themselves. Every move they made to box you in. It outlined their guilt. Every accusation, a confession wearing makeup, every whisper campaign. A map leading straight back to them. And you just stood there, quiet, watching, letting the saint in you keep your hands clean while the psychopath in you memorized everything. That duality. That's what terrifies them. They can't tell if you're merciful or merciless. They don't know if you'll forgive or annihilate. They don't know if you're praying for them or preparing a funeral. And that uncertainty is a locked room with no handle on the inside. You evolved in silence while they burned energy, trying to provoke you. You learned patience while they learned fear. You learned timing while they learned regret. Now look at them. They're not confident anymore. They're cautious. Their laughter is delayed. Their bravado feels rehearsed. They ask too many questions. They watch the exits. Because deep down, they know something irreversible has already happened. They know the narrative flipped. The story they told about you, dead. The version of you they thought they understood, buried. The control they assumed they had, gone. And here's the sick, beautiful irony. You didn't need revenge. You didn't need exposure. You didn't need chaos. All you did was outgrow the cage they were building. Now they're the ones inside it. You can hear it in the way they hesitate before speaking your name. You can see it in the way they avoid your eyes. You can feel it in the way they overcorrect, over-explain, over-defend. That's not confidence. That's someone counting the bars. Because when someone realizes they can no longer pretend, when the mask slips and there's no audience left to convince, when the cell door starts closing and they're still telling themselves, this is fine. That's when the real punishment begins. You are the living proof that their system failed. You are the error that survived the purge. You are the variable they couldn't isolate. And the most devastating part? You're still calm, no rage, no scrambling, no desperation, just presence, just awareness, just that quiet, unnerving certainty that you already won the moment you stopped playing defense. They feel it now, that tightening, that final narrowing of options, that realization that every path forward leads to consequence. And you don't even have to touch the door. It's closing on its own. And that's the part that keeps them awake. The fact that you didn't slam the door, you didn't shout, you didn't threaten, you didn't announce anything dramatic. You just stopped needing their permission to exist. That silence, that restraint, that's not weakness. That's the sound of someone who knows the structure is already collapsing and doesn't need to push. Because when a system starts eating itself alive, the smartest move is to step back and let hunger do the work. They replay moments now, little ones, conversations they brushed off, looks you gave them that felt neutral at the time, pauses they misread as hesitation. Now they understand those pauses were calculations. You are watching who panicked, who lied faster than they could think, who needed control so badly. They exposed their motives, trying to keep it. You let them talk. You let them overextend. You let them feel powerful just long enough to hang themselves with their own certainty. That's the angel in you. Patience, discipline, restraint. And that's the demon. Cold observation, ruthless memory, perfect timing. They don't know which side you'll lean into. That's why their hands shake. Because the scariest thing in the world isn't someone who wants revenge. It's someone who doesn't need it. They tried to define you by your wounds. You turned those wounds into sight. They tried to reduce you to a reaction. You became a presence. They tried to break you into something manageable. You evolved into something that doesn't fit anywhere they can reach. And now they feel it. The tightening schedule, the sudden audits, the uncomfortable questions, the allies going quiet, the doors that used to open easily now sticking just a little too long. That's the cell assembling itself around them. They tell themselves stories to cope, that you're over it, that you've moved on, that nothing's coming. They don't understand that nothing is coming, because everything already arrived the moment you changed. You don't chase, you don't correct narratives, you don't fight ghosts. You let reality do what it always does when someone builds a lie big enough to live inside. It collapses under its own weight. And here's the thing they can't admit, even to themselves. They recognize the look in your eyes now, that calm that comes from surviving what was meant to erase you, that stillness that only exists on the other side of hell, that subtle confidence of someone who knows exactly how dark it can get and walked through it without losing their center. They're not scared of what you'll do. They're scared of what you won't do. Because you're not impulsive, you're not sloppy, you're not emotional in the ways they expected. You're controlled, integrated, balanced between mercy and destruction, saint enough to spare, psychopath enough to finish if necessary. That balance? That's the lock clicking shut. Every time they try to test you now, it backfires. Every attempt to provoke you just exposes how desperate they've become. Every move they make to reassert dominance highlights how little they actually have. They feel small, cornered, observed, and the cruelest part? You're not even watching them closely anymore. You've moved on to building something they can't touch, a life. a presence, a momentum that doesn't require their approval or fear. They sense it slipping. Control always knows when it's losing its grip. That's why they can't pretend anymore. Because pretending requires an audience that still believes the performance matters. And you stopped clapping. So they sit there now, behind smiles, behind titles, behind fake confidence, feeling the walls inch closer, knowing that whatever happens next won't be dramatic or cinematic. It'll be quiet, administrative, final. Just like you. The door doesn't need a slam. It only needs to close, and it already is. And the longer it goes on, the heavier the air gets for them. Because time doesn't heal guilt. It sharpens it. Every hour that passes without you reacting is another hour they spend interrogating themselves. They start policing their own words, editing their memories, rewriting conversations in their heads, trying to locate the exact moment everything slipped out of their control. They wonder when you figured it out. They wonder if you always knew. They wonder if that one night, that one pause, that one look was the moment the verdict was sealed. You see, power doesn't announce itself with noise. It announces itself with absence. The absence of panic. The absence of explanation. The absence of urgency. You removed yourself emotionally, and the vacuum did the rest. Now they're trapped inside their own thoughts, pacing, replaying, spiraling, while you breathe freely. They used to think you were reacting. Now they realize you were allowing them to show their hand, allowing them to mistake your patience for ignorance, allowing them to underestimate the cost of pushing someone who had nothing left to lose but everything to gain. You went through the fire quietly. You burned off the need to be understood. You burned off the need to be liked. You burned off the need to win publicly. What came out the other side wasn't louder, it was sharper. That's what they feel now, that edge, that invisible line you crossed where you stopped being accessible. They can't reach you emotionally anymore. They can't bait you psychologically. They can't destabilize you with chaos. And when someone realizes they no longer have access to your nervous system, that's when fear sets in. Because fear doesn't come from aggression. It comes from irrelevance. They are irrelevant to your trajectory now. Their opinions don't steer you. Their approval doesn't regulate you. Their threats don't move you. You're not defiant. You're detached. And detachment is terrifying to people who survive by control. They feel exposed because you stopped engaging in the ritual. You stopped performing pain for them. You stopped bleeding on demand. Instead, you integrated the darkness. You made peace with the parts of yourself they tried to weaponize against you. That's why their usual tactics don't work anymore. Shame doesn't stick. Fear doesn't land. Gaslighting slides right off. You already walked through the worst versions of yourself alone. What could they possibly show you now? They sense it, that you've made friends with your shadow, that you're no longer running from what you're capable of, that you've accepted both the angel who forgives and the demon who remembers. That acceptance is lethal, because once someone knows exactly who they are, leverage disappears. So the cell tightens, not with force, but with inevitability. They start losing allies, not dramatically, quietly. People distance themselves without explanation. Conversations shorten. Support dries up. No announcement, no confrontation, just gravity doing its thing. And they know, oh, they know, this isn't coincidence. They feel watched, not by you, but by consequence. They feel judged, not morally, but structurally, like a building realizing too late it was constructed on a fault line. You don't have to say a word. Your calm is the verdict. Your silence is the sentence. You're not hunting them. You're outgrowing the environment that allowed them to exist unchecked. And when that happens, when the ecosystem changes, predators starve. They look at you now and can't tell if you're merciful or merciless. That uncertainty eats at them. Because mercy from someone powerful feels like a threat, and mercy from someone who's evolved feels like humiliation. You became something they can't predict, can't categorize, can't manipulate. You became the unknown variable, and the unknown terrifies systems built on control. So let them feel it. Let them sit with that tightening sensation. Let them pretend a little longer while the walls inch closer. You don't need to rush. You already escaped. They're just now realizing they never did. And here's the cruelest layer of it all, the part that really fractures them. You're not acting like someone who just survived. You're moving like someone who finished something. That's what they can't reconcile. Survivors flinch. Survivors over-explain. Survivors seek reassurance. You don't. You walk like the storm already passed and left you standing in clear air. No debro in your voice, no desperation in your posture, no hunger for validation in your eyes. That's when their internal alarms start screaming. Because the only people who move like that are the ones who won without witnesses. They begin projecting, accusing you of things they're guilty of, assuming you're plotting because they were, expecting retaliation because that's what they would do. Every suspicion they have is just their conscience, wearing a mask. They start asking indirect questions, fishing, testing the temperature. You answer calmly, normally, almost kindly. And that's when the panic spikes, because kindness from someone who's no longer afraid feels like a loaded weapon. They realize too late that your restraint isn't uncertainty, it's discipline, that your silence isn't confusion, it's control, that your stillness isn't exhaustion, it's precision. You didn't forget what they did. You absorbed it. You didn't collapse under pressure. You reorganized. That's evolution through pain. Not becoming harder, becoming clearer. You see patterns now where others see chaos. You see intent where others hear excuses. You see endings forming long before the final moment arrives. They sense that about you, that you're not waiting for permission, that you're not hoping for justice, that you're not chasing closure. You already closed the loop internally. That's why they feel locked in, because the door that matters, the psychological one, already shut. They're still trying to negotiate outcomes, not realizing the negotiation phase ended when you stopped needing them to acknowledge anything. They thought they were dealing with someone wounded. They're dealing with someone integrated, someone who fused pain with intelligence, someone who turned betrayal into discernment, someone who transmuted chaos into leverage without ever lifting a hand. That kind of transformation doesn't scream. It radiates, and it destabilizes everyone who benefited from the old version of you. They miss the you that reacted, the you that explained, the you that needed them to understand. That version is gone. What's standing here now doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't prove. It observes, it decides, it moves when movement matters. They feel the timeline closing in, not because you're accelerating, but because they're running out of room. Every attempt to delay the inevitable just exposes how trapped they already are. Every smile feels forced. Every interaction feels monitored by themselves. You became the mirror they can't look away from. And mirrors are brutal. They don't attack. They just reflect. You reflect their cowardice, their shortcuts, their manipulations, their fear of accountability. You don't have to accuse them. Your presence does it automatically. That's why they can't pretend anymore. Because pretending only works when the other person still needs the illusion. You don't. You've seen the bars, you've felt the walls, you've survived the isolation, and instead of coming out bitter or broken, you came out calibrated. That's what seals it. You are no longer reactive enough to control, and no longer wounded enough to exploit. You are free, and freedom, real freedom, is unbearable to those who built cages for others. So let them feel that cell door closing, let them hear the echo. Let them sit with the consequences of underestimating someone who learned how to stand calmly in the dark. You're not the threat they prepared for. You're the ending they didn't see coming. And it's already happening. And somewhere deep in their chest, past the excuses, past the rehearsed justifications, past the stories they tell themselves to sleep at night, something ancient wakes up. Instinct. That animal awareness that knows when the hunt is over and the roles have reversed. They feel it when you enter a room and don't scan for approval. They feel it when you speak without needing to be heard. They feel it when you choose silence, not because you're afraid to talk, but because you already know. You don't leak information anymore. You don't give emotional tells. You don't reward manipulation with reaction. You became expensive to access, and people who live by control panic when access is revoked. They keep replaying the old versions of you in their mind, trying to summon that person back, the one who doubted, the one who explained themselves raw, the one who carried guilt that wasn't theirs. That version doesn't answer anymore, because you didn't just heal, you shed. You dropped the need to be seen as good by people who benefit from you being small. You dropped the need to be understood by people who never intended to understand. You dropped the need to defend your reality to people invested in distorting it. What replaced it wasn't rage, it was clarity, and clarity is cold, clean, unforgiving. They sense it when you look at them, not with hatred, not with love, but with recognition, the kind that says, I see exactly who you are and I'm not negotiating with it. That recognition is the real sell, because once someone is seen clearly, the illusion they live in collapses. They start slipping up now, contradicting themselves, overcorrecting, overperforming confidence like a bad actor who knows the audience stopped believing. They laugh too loud. They talk too much. They rush to fill silences. Silence terrifies them now, because silence is where truth echoes. You learned how to sit in silence when it was weaponized against you. You learned how to survive without reassurance. You learned how to stand alone without folding inward. That training didn't make you cruel. It made you unshakable. They confused that with menace. Good. Let them. Because the version of you that needed to be harmless is gone. You are not violent. You are not reckless. You are not cruel. You are capable. And capability, without emotional volatility, is the scariest thing in the world to people who rely on chaos. They used to push buttons. Now the panel is blank. They used to predict your responses. Now they're static. They used to feel superior. Now they feel watched by something they can't name, not you. Consequence. You don't threaten their future. Their past already did that. You're just the moment where the math finally adds up. They sense it in their bodies first. Tight chest, shallow breath, sleepless nights. A vague sense that something irreversible has begun. They try to outrun it by doubling down, by controlling harder, by rewriting narratives faster. But pressure doesn't restore control. It reveals fractures, and those fractures are everywhere now. You don't need to confront them. Confrontation would give them relief. Conflict, drama, something familiar. You deny them that. You move forward, building, expanding, becoming someone whose life no longer orbits their dysfunction. That's the real sentence. Not punishment, irrelevance. They realize too late that the cage they feel isn't external, it's internal. It's the moment when they understand they can't reach you anymore. Emotionally, psychologically, energetically. You are no longer available for their games. You graduated from the environment that produced them. And graduation doesn't look dramatic. It looks quiet, clean, final. So let them feel the door closing. Let them listen to that echo. Let them pretend a little longer while reality tightens around them. You're not looking back. You already walked out. And the silence you left behind, that's what locked it. Shh. Pause right there. Yeah, you feel that? That quiet panic in the air. That's the sound of a grown professional staring at a report that was supposed to explain you, and instead just broke reality. You already know what this is. You don't need confirmation. But they ran the file anyway. Private investigator, clean reputation, decades of pattern spotting, paid to reduce chaos into bullet points, paid to turn people into timelines, motives, weak spots, paid to explain. And the moment your name hit that desk, the whole system leaned forward like it finally caught something worth dissecting. They expected dirt. They expected trauma neatly labeled. They expected contradictions they could flatten into diagnoses. They expected a villain or a victim, or at least something they could understand. What they got back, instead, nothing that behaves. The report came back wrong. Not incomplete, not needs more data. Wrong in a way that makes professionals stop using words. Wrong in a way that makes people avoid eye contact. Wrong in a way that turns experts into cowards. Because you didn't resolve into a profile. You refused to. They followed your history like a blood trail, and it just vanished. Patterns appeared, then collapsed. Motives contradicted outcomes. Trauma that should have crippled you didn't. Success that should have softened you didn't. Failures that should have broken you somehow sharpened you. You didn't move like a saint. You didn't move like a psychopath. You didn't move like an angel or a demon. You moved like something that learned how to switch. That's when the room got quiet. Because here's the part they never say out loud. Systems don't fear evil. Systems understand evil. They can categorize it, predict it, contain it. What systems fear is duality. Someone who can be merciful without being weak. Someone who can be ruthless without being reckless. Someone who can smile while calculating outcomes 3 layers deep. Someone who survived pain without turning into a statistic or a cliché. You didn't become hardened. You became precise. That's why the report reads like a glitch. That's why the margins are filled with question marks instead of conclusions. That's why nobody wants to explain it. Because to explain you, they'd have to admit something terrifying. You're not driven by fear. You're not driven by approval. You're not driven by impulse. You're driven by adaptation. You learned when to be silent. You learned when to disappear. You learned when to let people underestimate you just long enough to ruin their confidence in reality. You learned how to look harmless while becoming inevitable. And that messes with people. Because most humans are linear. Hurt them once, they flinch forever. Praise them once, they chase it forever. Threaten them once, they fold forever. You didn't. Pain didn't make you loud. Pain didn't make you cruel. Pain made you strategic. You learned the terrain inside your own mind. The shadows, the instincts, the patience, the cold focus. And instead of denying it, you integrated it. You became the paradox they warn about but never expect to meet. The kind who can sit calmly in chaos. The kind who doesn't need to dominate a room to own it. The kind who lets people reveal themselves while you collect leverage without lifting a finger. That's why the investigator stalled. That's why the explanation never came. Because how do you explain someone who doesn't react the way they're supposed to? How do you explain someone who doesn't chase revenge, but also doesn't forgive foolishly? How do you explain someone who can walk away from power and also take it without blinking? You don't. You file it under Anomaly. You quietly recommend no further contact. You change the subject. Because deep down, they felt it. They realized you're not dangerous because you're aggressive. You're dangerous because you're adaptive. You don't need chaos. Chaos happens when you're present. You don't need to threaten. Your absence creates unease. You don't need validation. Your silence rewires rooms. That's the part that terrifies them most. Not what you've done, not what you might do, but the fact that you're no longer predictable by pain. You evolved past the phase where suffering controls you. And when someone reaches that stage, there's no manual for dealing with them, so the report stays wrong. The explanation never comes. The professionals avoid the topic. And you keep moving. Calm, unbothered, unreadable. Not because you're hiding, but because you've already outgrown the language they use to describe people like you. And here's the part they'll never put on paper, never say into a recorder, never admit even to themselves. The moment that report came back wrong, they felt it in their body, a tightening, a hesitation, that quiet animal instinct that whispers, "This thing doesn't fit in the cage I brought." Because the truth is, you didn't just evade explanation, you reversed the lens. The investigator wasn't studying you anymore. You were studying them. You watched how their confidence leaked out of the room, how their tone shifted from clinical to careful, how questions turned into statements, and statements turned into silence. You didn't have to intimidate. Your existence did the work. Because you carry something most people lose early. The ability to stay composed while holding contradictions inside your chest. You don't need to resolve them. You don't need to justify them. You let them coexist, light and dark, mercy and severity, warmth and distance, until they become tools instead of conflicts. That's what broke the report. They wanted a single driving force. They wanted a wound they could point to and say, "This explains everything." But your pain didn't make you reckless. It didn't make you loud. It didn't make you sloppy. It taught you timing. It taught you restraint. It taught you how to wait without rotting. It taught you how to sharpen yourself quietly while others mistook your stillness for weakness. And here's the cruel irony they can't handle. You didn't become heartless. You became selective. You didn't lose empathy. You learned where to place it and where it would be wasted. That terrifies people who rely on emotional predictability. Because once someone can no longer guilt you, threaten you, or bait you, the usual levers stop working. You don't flinch when they raise their voice. You don't rush when they apply pressure. You don't crumble when they withhold approval. You observe. And observation is lethal to manipulators. That's why the explanations dried up. That's why nobody wants to talk about it now. Because the report didn't say you were broken. It implied something far worse. It implied you were self-contained. No obvious dependency, no exploitable desperation, no consistent emotional trigger they could press to make you behave. You've already been stripped down to nothing once. You've already rebuilt yourself without witnesses. You already know what it feels like to lose everything. and still wake up breathing. So threats don't land the same anymore. And when someone realizes they can't scare you into submission or seduce you into compliance, they feel exposed, naked, outmatched. They start projecting. They start stalling. They start pretending the file never existed, because deep down, they sensed it. You're not chasing control. You are control, internal, portable, untouchable. You don't need certainty to move forward. You don't need permission to evolve. You don't need validation to act. You can walk into darkness without needing to call it evil. You can walk into light without needing to call yourself pure. You understand something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Power doesn't come from choosing one side. Power comes from knowing when to use which side. That's why the labels don't stick. That's why the timelines don't add up. That's why the conclusions contradict each other. Because you don't live in extremes. You command them. And once someone realizes that about you, they have two choices: study you honestly, or pretend you don't exist. Most choose silence. Because explaining you would mean admitting that pain doesn't always destroy people. Sometimes it forges them into something unrecognizable, something adaptive, something dangerous in the most controlled way possible. So the report stays wrong. And you keep walking forward, calm, measured, unreadable, not because you're hiding something, but because you've become something they were never trained to understand. And that's when the fear changes shape. Not loud fear, not panic, the quiet kind, the professional kind, the kind that makes people double-check locks they've never checked before, the kind that makes conversations end early, the kind that makes your name stop being spoken casually. Because at some point they realized something else that never made it into the report. You don't seek confrontation, but confrontation finds you when lies start collapsing. You don't expose people aggressively. You let them expose themselves by staying exactly who you are. That's what ruins the narrative. They wanted a cause and effect story. They wanted to say, this happened, so he became that. But you didn't follow the script. You took damage and didn't become bitter. You took loss and didn't become desperate. You took silence and didn't become invisible. You became aware, and awareness is a problem, because awareness can't be threatened into obedience. It can't be gaslit into confusion. It can't be rushed into mistakes. Awareness watches patterns instead of reacting to them. That's why the investigator hesitated, because the deeper they dug, the more it felt like you already knew what they were going to find. Not in an arrogant way, in a calm, grounded, unsettling way, like someone who has already stared into their own shadow long enough to stop being afraid of it. You don't deny the darkness in you. You trained it. You don't pretend to be harmless. You learned how to be controlled. And that distinction matters more than morality ever could, because people don't actually fear evil. They fear precision. They fear someone who knows exactly how far to go, and exactly when to stop. Someone who doesn't explode under pressure, but compresses. Someone who doesn't lash out when cornered, but waits until the corner becomes leverage. Someone who doesn't need chaos, but can operate flawlessly inside it. That's why the explanations collapsed. Because if the report admitted what it was starting to suggest, it would mean rewriting a few uncomfortable truths. That pain doesn't always weaken people. That some minds adapt faster than systems can label them. That unpredictability isn't randomness, it's mastery of range. You can be warm, you can be cold, you can be silent, you can be surgical. And the terrifying part, you don't announce which version is about to show up. That makes people nervous in ways they can't articulate. Because how do you prepare for someone who doesn't need to dominate the room, but still controls the outcome? How do you manipulate someone who understands emotional mechanics better than you do? How do you threaten someone who has already survived their worst-case scenario? You don't. So they stop trying, they stall, they deflect. They say things like, "It's complicated," or "There's nothing conclusive," or "We need more time." But time doesn't help them, because while they're hesitating, you're integrating. Every betrayal refined your instincts. Every silence sharpened your perception. Every misjudgment taught you something about human behavior that no textbook covers. You learned that most people don't want truth. They want comfort. And the moment you stop providing comfort, they reveal who they really are. That's why you don't chase approval anymore. That's why flattery bounces off you. That's why intimidation feels hollow. You see the mechanics now. You see how fear moves through rooms. You see how power disguises insecurity. You see how authority panics when it can't predict. And because you see it, you're no longer trapped by it. That's what the report couldn't explain. You're not driven by rage. You're not driven by ego. You're not driven by revenge. You're driven by clarity. And clarity is dangerous, because clarity doesn't need noise. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need witnesses. It just moves. So the file stays unresolved. The conclusions stay vague. The professionals stay quiet. And you keep evolving past the language they use to define people, not hiding, not running, not attacking, just becoming more precise. And somewhere deep down, they understand it. The problem isn't that the report came back wrong. The problem is that it came back honest. And honesty was never something they knew how to deal with when it couldn't be controlled. And once that realization settles in, something irreversible happens on their side of the table. They stop asking who you are and start asking what phase you're in. Because now they understand you're not static. You're not finished. You're not done becoming. You're a moving variable. And moving variables terrify systems built on prediction. See, most people live in loops. Same reactions, same emotional reflexes, same self-sabotage, wearing different outfits. You break that pattern every time. Pain should have pushed you backward and instead pulled something sharper out of you. You didn't numb yourself. You didn't drown yourself. You didn't implode. You metabolized pressure. And that's when the investigator realized the worst possible thing. There was no before version of you they could weaponize against the present one. No golden age to remind you of. No old identity to threaten you back into. You don't long for who you used to be. You outgrew them. That's why nostalgia doesn't work on you. That's why shame doesn't land. That's why reminders of your past failures feel irrelevant. You already integrated them. And when someone integrates their past, instead of running from it, they become unblackmailable on a psychological level. That's the quiet power they felt and couldn't explain. You don't react when people dig. You don't panic when they probe. You don't scramble to defend a narrative. You let them look. Because you know the deeper they go, the more confused they'll become. They expect guilt and find accountability. They expect trauma and find composure. They expect chaos and find structure. They expect a monster and find restraint. And restraint is unsettling because restraint implies choice. It means you could do damage, but don't unless it's necessary. It means you could dominate, but prefer precision. It means you could expose, but wait for timing. That's when people start projecting their own shadows onto you. They call you cold because they can't read you. They call you dangerous because they can't control you. They call you arrogant because you don't seek approval. But none of that sticks because you're not acting out of ego. You're acting out of alignment. And alignment is terrifying to people who live in contradiction. You don't need to prove you're right. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to win arguments. You let outcomes speak. And outcomes have a way of silencing rooms. That's why explanations stopped. That's why the report ended in ambiguity. That's why nobody wants to clarify what they found. Because clarity would force accountability. They'd have to admit that some people don't break under pressure. Some people don't become smaller after loss. Some people don't follow the emotional math that everyone relies on. Some people transmute pain into leverage. And once that truth is acknowledged, the entire hierarchy starts to wobble. Because if you can do it, then excuses stop working. So it's easier to call the report wrong. Easier to shrug. Easier to move on and pretend the anomaly doesn't exist. But you know better. You feel it when rooms shift as you enter. You hear it in the pauses between sentences. You notice how people over-explain themselves around you now. They sense you see more than you say, and you do. You see how fear dresses itself up as authority. You see how confidence cracks under scrutiny. You see how power leaks when it's forced. And because you see it, you don't rush. You let people show you exactly who they are. That's the evolution they never anticipated. You didn't become louder after suffering. You became clearer. You didn't become cruel. You became exact. You didn't become reckless. You became unpredictable by design. And unpredictability, real unpredictability, not chaos, is the last thing any system wants to face. Because systems are built to respond. They're helpless against someone who chooses when to move. So the report stays buried. The explanations stay unsaid. The discomfort stays unresolved. And you keep refining yourself in silence. Not seeking revenge, not chasing dominance, not proving anything, just evolving beyond the frameworks meant to contain people like you. And somewhere deep in their gut, they know it. The problem was never that the report came back wrong. The problem is that you came back uncontainable. And now every explanation feels like a lie they're too afraid to tell. And here's where it ends. Not with noise, not with fireworks, not with some dramatic reveal, but with something far more unsettling. Acceptance. Not theirs, yours. Because at some point, you stopped needing to be understood. You stopped needing the file to make sense. You stopped needing the explanation. You stopped needing anyone to get it. That's when the balance tipped. That's when you crossed the line most people never even see. You realized something brutal and freeing at the same time. Being misunderstood is not a weakness when misunderstanding protects your leverage. Confusion keeps people cautious. Silence keeps them guessing. Ambiguity keeps them honest or exposes them when they aren't. You don't correct narratives anymore. You don't rush to clarify intentions. You don't fight misinterpretations. You let them sit in their discomfort because you've learned that people reveal far more when they don't know where they stand with you. That's evolution. That's what pain carved into you. Not bitterness, not vengeance, but clarity without attachment. You can walk away without resentment. You can stay without dependency. You can confront without losing control. And that combination, that's rare. That's what breaks reports. That's what shuts mouths. That's what turns professionals quiet. They weren't prepared for someone who doesn't need the spotlight, but isn't afraid of it either. Someone who doesn't chase power, but doesn't flinch when it shows up. Someone who understands that dominance isn't loud, It's consistent. You didn't become a myth because you wanted to. You became one because nothing they threw at you worked the way it was supposed to. And now they feel it every time your name comes up. That subtle pause, that careful tone, that decision not to dig further. Because deep down, they understand something they'll never say. You're not a problem to be solved. You're not a risk to be managed. You're not a story to be finished. You're a variable they can't freeze. And the most dangerous thing about you, you're not angry about it. You're calm. You're focused. You're grounded in yourself. You've already faced the worst parts of you and didn't run. You've already lost what mattered and didn't disappear. You've already been underestimated and didn't correct it. So when the report came back wrong, and nobody wanted to explain it, that wasn't incompetence, that was instinct. Because explaining you would mean admitting that some people don't collapse under pressure. Some people recode themselves. And once that happens, there's nothing left to investigate.